That's right, baby. Take that challenge no one asked me to do. My only request is that if you liked it, do not subscribe for more. I will not be doing this again when Strand comes out. Nope, never. Never, ever, 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 ever. Alright, I think we can all agree that I've stalled this out long enough, but I made some rule changes to add a bit more flavor to the challenge, and now you gotta hear about them. From last time, we must go flawless once on every subclass in the game, that is Arc, Solar, Void, Stasis, and Strand, once each for Titan, Hunter, and Warlock, making a total of 15 flawless cards in a single weekend. I'm also keeping the no duplicate exotic armor rule, where upon going flawless while using an exotic armor piece, that armor is then banned from use for the remainder of the weekend, and this is probably a good time to mention that this challenge was filmed before the recent nerfs to Entei Swords. To strengthen this idea and also add a little bit more challenge, the first rule change that I am making is to also ban duplicate grenades. The 3.0 updates gave all three classes the same grenade options to choose from, which in theory would allow me to run the same grenade on all three subclasses of the same element, which sounded kinda lame. So I'm giving grenades the same treatment as exotic armor, where once I go flawless, the grenade I use during that card is banned on all characters for the rest of the weekend. Keep in mind that for all three of these rules, we are not allowed to change any of the relevant loadout pieces until the current card is either completed or reset. No changing my subclass, exotic armor, or grenade when I am mid-card or mid-game. To change any of these loadout pieces, I will either need to go flawless or reset the card and start fresh. Finally, to add a little variety from last time, the last change you should be aware of is that I'm actually going to be duo queuing this time around. I was planning to solo queue again, but since freelance is no longer a thing, and because I'm fully expecting this to take around 200 matches, I figured my best chance would just be to make one of my friends suffer with me. Say hi to the people, Albert.
Why'd you make me do this, man?
Bro, put that spoon away. Matchmaking reasons aside, duo queuing is actually really cool for this challenge, as it gives us the option to build around teamwork and synergy with our subclasses instead of just individual play. You'll see what I mean a little later. With that, the final rule changes as follows. We must always be on the same subclass, so no mismatching or splitting up the work or anything like that. We're suffering through all 15 of these cards together. On armor and grenades though, I have decided to let us mismatch if we want to, because I think that'll give us the most interesting options for build crafting, especially if we're trying to synergize with each other. The downside here, however, is that upon going flawless, both exotics or grenades used during the card would be banned going forward, whereas if we were matching, then only one gets banned. This will hopefully let us get a lot more creative in our builds, but will also force us to ration our subclass neutral exotics and grenades pretty heavily, especially early on in the weekend. And that is why it took us so long to plan for this challenge. But with the preparations done and the loadouts saved, all that's left was to pick a weekend, set some time aside, and hope that after 8 months out of rotation, the map would somehow not be Radiant Cliffs again!
Got him weak again. Last one is on my body sniping. Nice freeze. It's frozen. Suspended. You got him with the
Yeah, get him with the tech, baby.
Nice. Well played.
One of the better changes to trials in recent seasons was giving players a second mercy on their first flawless card of the week. So if there was ever going to be any memes in this video, then it may as well be first. Build is pretty straightforward with this one, pairing the Solar Blast from Kefri's Horn Barricades with the Suspending Blast from the Dranger's Lash aspect to pick up some pretty hilarious one-hit kills on unsuspecting targets. I also like to run the Cryosthesia with this build to try and slow down opponents and reduce their chances of escaping the hybrid Solar Strand Death Wave. And as great as that all sounds, you'll be happy to know that this card took us 6 hours. Yeah, Turns out having a build that only really does damage within 20 meters isn't really that helpful on Radiant Cliffs. If the zone was outside, or if the enemy team just avoided gunfights in the narrow hallways around B, then it was pretty tough just to find opportunities for this build to shine. Well, for my build at least. After going through Owl's footage for this card, I am absolutely Abeyant Leap pilled now. Whether you're suspending multiple targets, people around corners, or a sniper on the opposite side of the map, the Abeyants just get it done.
Bro, I don't care what anyone says. Look at where his Abeyant Leap got him. Look where my barricade is over there. This got him. This got
But after about 4 hours of basically zero real progress, we kinda had to go back to the drawing board on this one. I was considering switching Kefries in favor of either Abeyant or even burning a strong neutral exotic just to boost our chances a little, but honestly that's just not where the problem was. With most opposing teams looking like this, and most of our losses looking like this, I'm not kidding when I say this is the closest we got just to giving up on the challenge. As good as the Blade Fury super is, with most opponents running Bubble and Well, we had to work twice as hard in the early rounds just to get our supers by the end of the match. The meta for this map was quickly developing into bows and snipers with high intellect and fast cooldown supers, which was a complete shutdown to my strategy. So, after some tweaks here and there, the loadout change that finally got us some card progress was a weapon swap to a super quirky off-meta combo you probably haven't seen before, which is conditional finality and Igneous Hammer. I'm not kidding when I say the free shot from Confin immediately starts winning us rounds against short cooldown supers, and we're able to start stealing some of these games away that previously would have been completely unwinnable. Having a shotgun also improves my short range game considerably, and I'm able to get value out of the Kefri setup even more than before just by being extra aggressive. And because the shotgun is a solar weapon half the time, you can get some extra bang for your buck on armor mods by running a solar primary weapon alongside it, making Igneous Hammer kind of a no-brainer pairing. Just having a primary weapon to duel on this map's longer ranges is a night and day difference from before, and Owl and I quickly fall into a groove with our new primary options. He actually decided to go with Jade Rabbit to contest the bows and snipers a little better, while keeping Witherhoard on standby as a kinetic swap for the later rounds. And with these changes, we were finally able to drag Berserker across the finish line, and then we took a nap, because that sucked. I kind of feel bad because I do actually really like Berserker. This just definitely wasn't the map for it. The melee is one of my favorites in the game for the movement alone, as the instant dash effect feels similar to a shoulder charge with no sprinting requirement, but of course the downside is that actually punching people with it is basically always a bad idea. As for grenades, we went with Shackle to try and help with our whole suspend getup. I think Grapple is pretty much always better on Berserker for the movement and the additional high damage grapple melee, but we wanted to save that grenade for Threadrunner later on, so Shackle was kind of the only reasonable option. If anyone has any hot Shackle grenade tips, please let me know in the comments. I feel like all I really did this card was throw them into walls by accident.
I got that guy off you. He's low red. He's healing nade.
Well, that's definitely a different starting note compared to last time. Even more jarring is starting off with an amazing PvE roll on the grenade launcher. I mean, you know, you probably want bait and switch here, and I'm looking for more of a PvP roll, but yeah, you know, we take those. And since the entire Destiny community is in a spend all legendary shards any percent speedrun, we get to look at 2 rolls per flawless this time. Don't worry though, this one was a bit more within expectations. Anyways, I think we're gonna go with something a little bit easier next.
It's okay. Pushing. Tight. Wow. Pushing both. He's sitting on the res. He's moving up to you. Big mistake. Got him. I got an Ahmed out there. I can't really fight it.
One's on the right, can you shoot me?
Yeah, he's weak. They're both there. Nice.
Hold that one back around. Holy shit. To offset the meme loadouts from the Berserker card, we decided to go full meta next with Striker. Titan is notoriously the most lopsided PvP class in the game, with Arc and Void often combining for over 30% of the player base, while Strand, Solar, and Stasis usually coming around 4. So in our planning for the challenge, we decided to try and alternate between the meta and off-meta subclasses to keep our progress as balanced as possible. Striker is typically run with top exotics like Peacekeepers, or back in the day, Antaeus wards, but because the subclass is very strong already, we decided to save those strong neutral exotics for later and run the subclass a little bit differently from normal. For me, this means a setup that is much less popular, but much much more annoying to deal with. Peregrine Greaves are a simple but powerful tool on any of the light subclasses, and Arc is especially obnoxious because of its synergy with the Juggernaut shield, allowing me to easily get within shoulder charge range so long as I pick my fights in a somewhat reasonable fashion. This means a lot of disengaging my Jug shield on purpose by either sliding or shooting to make sure I keep my class ability charged and ready for when opportunity strikes, which, when you have immunity over shield and a 10-meter melee that does 500 damage, is kind of all the time. Arctitans nowadays typically run lightning grenades, but because I'm sacrificing Touch of Thunder for Juggernaut, it's a good excuse just to save lightnings for later. Instead, I actually opt for flashbang grenades, which pair remarkably well with this setup. Getting any amount of damage with a flashbang is basically an invitation for me just to charge in, as just a few seconds without radar gives them zero way to prepare for me. I actually went back and forth between all three class ability options quite a bit this card. Thruster and Rally Barricade are only about 2 seconds apart at base, but since I literally never pressed the class ability with this build, I just eventually settled on Thruster. Towering Barricade is by far the most useful of the three, but because its cooldown got lengthened drastically in a recent update, I decided against it pretty quickly and just got Owl to run it for me instead. Despite all the nerfs, it's still pretty important that at least one of us runs the Tall Barricade while we're on Titan, as its ability to block damage on a res or heavy even just for a second is still so valuable. Because he's running the Tall Barricades, Owl was free to run Touch of Thunder instead of Juggernaut, and since we're saving lightnings, he decided to run the Tracking Storm Grenades as an alternative. He also ran Dune Marchers as a safe neutral choice to boost his movement, and also clutch up some classic Striker 1v3 melee fights.
Let's see. You're number one, you're number
Nice.
two. Come on,
Going
baby.
up now.
Come on, baby.
Do it to him.
Despite getting set back a couple times due to lingering server issues from the recent DDoS attacks, we were able to make it through Striker pretty quickly. Not a huge surprise, but definitely a breath of fresh air after the Berserker card.
Let's go, baby. Let's go.
It's fairly late on Friday at this point, but we both agree getting through at least one more tonight would be a huge win going into Saturday, so we decided to press on to Sunbreaker. Last time around, I ran Peacekeepers on Sunbreaker with a pre-nerf Ikelos submachine gun to honestly just try and avoid actually using the subclass, but after getting called out by some Sunbreaker heads in the comments, I decided to build a little bit more into the class this time by giving everyone Season 17 PTSD with the Lorelei Splendor Helm. Nothing super complicated about this build, we're really just building into healing spam with Lorelei, healing grenades, and even getting a chance to heal on kill with the Suros Regime. I'm guessing by the time this video comes out, the 600 auto buff will be live, and there's probably a decent chance that this thing is actually meta. But even pre-buff, it does surprisingly well. I was originally deciding between going full healing with Crimson or full Gatling gun mode with the Sweet Business, but in playtesting, I quickly realized Suros was the absolute perfect pairing for this build as kind of a happy medium. With Rally Barricades and 2 kinetic reloaders, this thing really doesn't have much downtime between mags, and getting set up in the right spot with Lorelei healing is very, very difficult for teams to deal with. On top of that, auto rifles get anti-barrier this season, so anyone trying to shield for a res just has absolutely no chance, especially with the highly popular Bastion barricades. A fun special weapon pairing for this setup is a sniper to try and surprise people who think they can jiggle peek against the auto rifle. Beloved is a particularly good option here thanks to my new favorite perk, Enhanced Incandescent. Not only does the Scorch give you wall hacks and do considerable damage over time to nearby players, but combined with the Solar Fragment Ember of Singeing, just tagging one player with Incandescent effectively gives me my full barricade back. At this point in the night, we were playing a lot of Heat Rise's Dawnblades, so I did have to swap out the Suros for No Time to Explain a couple times, just to let me duel the floaters at range. But No Time is actually a decent pairing with this build, as I can use the excessive healing from our kit to build the turret up pretty quickly. I was pretty determined to make Suros work though, so I mostly did just stick with the auto rifle. On Owl's side, he was mostly just posted up in the back with the Jade Rabbit this card to cover me while I played my little barricade minigame. He had the Antaeus wards on this card, which I'm sure were very helpful in the scout rifle fights. He also swapped from healing grenades to thermites after a couple early losses to try and zone the point a little bit better, which I got no footage of because we finished this card very, very quickly, even faster than the Striker card. I think considering how intensely this map played around area control, the Lorelei Suros spam was just too difficult for most teams to figure out. Hell, even Burning Ball did things like a non-zero number of times, as its relatively short cooldown let us duke it out with some bubbles and wells toward the end, and even just chase people away from the zone if it came down to it. Anyways, it's around midnight on day 1 at this point, and with 3 down, it's looking a whole lot better than it did just a couple hours ago. After collecting my legendary shards from the lighthouse chest, the fatigue from the last 9 or so hours was really starting to set in, and I wish this was the part of the video where I could tell you we went to bed and got some rest for Saturday. And unfortunately, that is not the case, because I let Owl talk me into giving Sentinel the old college try first. I'm not gonna lie, the footage you're about to see for this card is not pretty. With energy running low and Sentinel sitting at the top of the meta right now, we were both happy just to let the subclass do the heavy lifting for us this card, which, if you're wondering, is a lot of this, and a lot of this, and a lot of this, and also this. I'm running Rally Barricades again this card. Wow, a lot of Rally Barricade this video, I'm just realizing. Even with Bastion, running small barricades cuts the cooldown by about 12 seconds at max resilience, and instead of using it to block things like a normal barricade, you'll mostly see me putting it kind of tucked away in corners where they won't shoot it, so we can play off the replenishable overshield as much as possible. When running trials with multiple Sentinels, most rounds follow the tune of one person barricading and then both of us fighting with that overshield and the next person barricading the next round. Also, both of us are running Synthoceps this card, as before their melee range was taken away in the latest patch, you could pair them with the health on melee kill fragment for kind of a budget striker knockout, and if you're wondering how often it came into play on this giant map, it was literally one time. Wow, look at it go. The best thing Synthos actually did for me this card was give me triple 100 stats, including Intellect, which in the current Trials meta is honestly just kind of unfair. Even with tired, sloppy play from both of us, any match that is actually close just ends with one of us getting super to win a round, which gets the other person super to win the next round, which just usually wins the game. We're both running shotguns this card to play around this, with the same long-range primaries as before. Igneous Hammer is especially fun here as it can 2-tap with Weapons of Light when that happens. We're also both running Void Walls for Sentinel, which are actually great at zoning off these long, flat areas of the map. Void Walls are typically run alongside Sentinel's controlled demolition aspect, as they can apply stacks of volatile really quickly, but I generally prefer offensive Bulwark, as the boost to grenade regeneration makes up for having my armor stats invested elsewhere. Anyways, turns out constant overshield uptime for your whole team with lightning fast super cooldowns to secure zones for free doesn't require a whole ton of brain power, and even though I'm barely keeping my eyes open at this point, we end up getting our first no reset flawless of the weekend. We did lose our Mercy on game 6 because we honestly just weren't paying enough attention to the video game, but before long we were taking our flawless cards in for the final lighthouse visit of the evening.
That was easy.
Not a bad turnaround for us though, huh? From being on the verge of quitting during the Berserker card to logging off with 4 subclasses done, we head to bed full of confidence and trying not to think about the last Titan subclass waiting for us in the morning. I really still don't know what I'm doing and just stop trying to make this melee work. The slide boost from Crowdclasm is so jarring. I have no idea how this super is even supposed to work. My Glacial Quake Redemption arc is gonna have to wait, however, because that is Behemoth done, baby.
They're both one taps, nice. There's still damage in there, not regenerating, nice. That's my boy right there. One top left.
Well, after a lot of reading, build crafting, playtesting, a 64-pack of twistable Crayolas, and several jokes regarding a certain narcotic which I have removed from the script to maintain my Movie of the Week eligibility, we have finally arrived on the final form of the aggressive Behemoth. Your eyes do not deceive you, that is double SMG putting in work on a map as big as this one, and it really is all made possible by Stasis Titan of all things. This build was recommended to me by multiple people in the comments of the last video, and while I've heard whispers of it before, I just never really was sold on the idea of 2 SMGs. I'm generally a guy that likes to have lots of ranges covered by his loadout, so when I first tried out this build in playtesting, I pretty quickly swapped one of the SMGs for a sniper to cover long ranges. However, the longer I played with it and the more comfortable I got with the insane movement kit from Behemoth, I started to realize that the biggest grievance of the build was just straight up running out of bullets, or worse, having to slow down to reload. So here we are, full circle with 2 submachine guns and peacekeepers for hot swapping and auto loading, so I really just don't have to stop shooting. I think the build is best summarized by this guy's comment here, where they explain that basically every single piece of the Behemoth kit can be used as a gap closer, as in all of the abilities that are available to you in some way can be used to just keep you within SMG range of your target. And I actually have the perfect round here to demonstrate it to you, so I'll go ahead and step through it one by one. So right off the bat, I'm using the movement speed from Peacekeepers to quickly take this flank on the platform to get there at the same time as the other team. I get there in time, but there's 2 of them waiting for me, so I throw a Glacier Grenade to block them off and crouch near the exit to wait for a better chance. Pretty soon after, I see Owl pushing forward, so hoping they'll be shooting at him, I slide back in and try and grab a quick pick, but they're both still ready for me, so I use my melee to quickly dip back around the corner to safety. From here, I can see Owl died pretty close to the point, and expecting them to push towards his res soon, full send a Cryoclasm slide to perfectly catch the Hunter. A barricade here protects my life and puts the Warlock who had been trying to clean me up way out of position, a quick boost around the corner, and the last guy who had been fighting me on the flank earlier hasn't realized I've gotten behind them on the other side and is an easy cleanup to close it out. Whew, that was fun. Not every day one clip sums up your entire loadout. Let's see. Risk Runner. This gun has kind of always been obsolete in PvP because of its terrible zoom stat. However, with the recent patch that decoupled zoom from damage fall off, Risk Runner is now just kind of a 900 SMG with 80 range. There's also a good amount of arc in the sandbox right now, especially from weapons, so we actually get the exotic perk going fairly often as well. I do think Glacier Grenades were honestly my favorite part of the build. After being stripped of their ability to instant freeze targets, they lost a lot of popularity, but the utility they provide as a slowing, throwable barricade that also physically blocks movement is just so fun. You can trap people in awkward positions, you can throw it towards somebody you're not ready to fight just yet, and then break down the wall the instant you feel like it. Owl actually opted to run Whisper of Fissures to boost his shatter damage, which clutched up some huge rounds when shotgunners got a little bit too close to us. That was a beautiful grenade, bro. However, the funniest use for Glaciers by far was just Fortniting our way to victory on the zones by throwing them in the choke points, especially this little cylinder hallway. This is also where Glacial Quake saw its only usage this card just by putting up a ton of crystals around point that only we can break easily by spamming Slide, which of course deals a ton of damage to the opponents around him. Lastly, the melee is amazing as an escape tool. It's similar to Berserker where you can just relocate at the press of a button, but of course with a lot more speed and distance. I'm not quite savvy enough yet with Behemoth to do the whole charge melee into uncharged melee insta-kill combo, but I made sure to give somebody a good smack before we finish. And with Behemoth down, we are officially done with our first class of the challenge. Not much to write home about on the stats though. I'm guessing this will probably go up as time goes on, as I think half of these games so far were on Berserker, but we'll see. Anyways, the morning's just getting going and we're already at the Lighthouse. Saturday is definitely going to be the biggest day for us. We're both pretty busy on Sunday and have work on Monday, so we're really hoping to put in a big shift today. At a bare minimum, I'd like to see 3 more cards done by tonight, but considering how well the last few have gone, I think we can probably do even more. Oh, and I'm not really talking about the GL rolls, by the way, because literally, why would you? Anyways, it's time to put down the crayons and pick up the graphing calculators because we're hopping right into Warlock next with Dawnblade.
Nice. He's on me. I'm weak. Nice. Okay.
You know, when I picked Dawnblade as our first Warlock subclass, it was kinda under the assumption that Behemoth was gonna be more of a struggle, but definitely wouldn't say no to some early momentum in the Warlock cards. This is also the part of the editing process where I get COVID, so if I sound a little sick, I do apologize. I just don't really want to stall the video out anymore. Similar to Void Titan, just running high intellect with the Well of Radiance super is an easy way to win some free rounds and close out matches before opponents have a chance to retaliate with supers of their own. Additionally, big open maps like this one are kinda the bread and butter of Solar Warlock, as the lack of ceilings gives infinite possibilities for plays with heat rises, and a decent long-range primary coupled with multiple self-healing abilities lets you put constant pressure on enemies while always having a new angle to peek from. In my case, that primary weapon is the No Time to Explain, which I'm pairing with the Ophidian aspects and Forgiveness sidearm to complete my GoldExgle roleplay. Last challenge I went on a whole spiel about how I didn't really like No Time, but after some experimenting I was able to figure out the secret, which by the way is just to buy the ornament that moves this blue fuzzy particle effect below the barrel instead of on it, makes it way easier to see out of. Because Dawnblade can heal from eating a Firebolt grenade or Phoenix diving, it just lets us build up the turret extra quickly to start getting free 2 bursts. Ophidian Aspects is the obvious pairing with this setup, as the free airborne effectiveness, reload, and handling is basically all you could want when running Dawnblade, especially with 2 primaries. The swap speed boost is particularly useful, as we can instantly switch from the long range pulse to the short range sidearm whenever someone gets a little bit too close. The Forgiveness is a great choice of sidearm as well, not just for its crazy burst damage up close, but also its high base airborne effectiveness stat. When coupled with Adept Icarus, Ophidians, and a base heat rises, you're sitting at a whopping 70 AE before even consuming a grenade, giving a fantastic close range dueling option to rely on while my Firebolt is on cooldown. That said, we were a little worried that 2 floaters would get in each other's way, so Owl decided to drop heat rises for Touch of Flame solar grenades, which are a great way to get people out of choke points or zones with their large radius and high damage output. And with him grounded and me airborne, and both of us running high intellect wells, we were able to make quick work of the Dawnblade card and give us some much needed confidence going into Shadebinder. Hey,
Oh, those are. Oh, wow. Okay.
I guess I should mention that Warlock is both mine and Owl's least played character, so we're really just taking our wins where we can get them here. We did burn the Ophidians pretty early, but most of our other Warlock builds are fairly set in stone as it is, so I'm not too worried about it. Like for Shadebinder, I don't think I was ever not going to use Osmiomancy here. This has got to be my favorite setup in the game for looking way better at sniping than I actually am. And pairing 3 different freezing abilities with a low zoom, high handling, opening shot sniper just gets us so many free picks. Successfully pre-firing the melee as people come around corners gives the most exquisite dopamine hit, and even though I'm literally just sniping people who can't move, I feel absolutely on fire as we make our way through Shadebinder. I'm gonna try and Osmiomancy on this guy.
I got flanked. Last one's red, he's coming up. Might be healing now. Nice shot. Sniper, lower. My HUD's disabled.
You know, he couldn't ADS fast enough.
They're pushing you, man. They're like pushing you.
You need to calm down, bro.
One upstairs down.
I missed that, no way. One interesting piece of advice I got in the comments was to run Empowering Rifts for a faster Frost Pulse animation, but similar to the Sunspot Barricades from the Sunbreaker card, the utility that Healing Rifts provide on this map is just too valuable to pass up. This map is prone to lots of long primary weapon standoffs, and being able to stay in the fight for basically the same duration as a Healing Rift is extremely valuable, and it's going to be a recurring theme across the rest of the Warlock subclasses. Past that, I don't think the strengths of Osmiomancy Cold Snap spam is much of a secret nowadays, and we actually end up getting our first 7-0 flawless of the weekend. If you saw the pre-Lightfall version of this challenge, you might remember Shadebinder being the hardest for me to complete, but turns out having 2 people spamming freezes at you just becomes exponentially harder to deal with. And if you thought it was bad on stasis, oh my god, just wait until you see Broodweaver. This build operates on a strict throw shit first, ask questions second mindset, and it's got a lot of different pieces that all work together in really powerful ways. For starters, the Waveframe with Disruption Break opens up insta-kill combos with your choice of a Thorn Body Shot or Necrotic Grip's Arcane Needle, both of which will kill at any resilience thanks to their respective DOT. Thorn's high base handling stat makes it an excellent hot swap option, and its natural synergy with Necrotic Grips is just a cherry on top. Not only do Necrotics give Thorn a huge airborne effectiveness boost, but every kill with the Thorn proccing Necrotic's Poison Explosion gives Broodweavers the option of burst damage, burn damage, or both. The Corruption Burn from Necrotic's proc is not only just confusing to be tagged by, but it's much more severe than the usual Thorn bullets, and all that time spent not regenerating health is just more time for our Threadlings to close the gap. Threadlings serve as their own form of DOT in a way, and mesh very naturally into the Corruption setup. Owl is even running the Swarmers on top of all of this to make his Threadlings apply Unraveling, which is another form of DOT. And yeah, I think you get it. It's a lot for our opponents to deal with. My only real gripe with the build is that I just can't fit Weavewalk into it. The insane damage resist from Weavewalk opens up so many fun options for Broodweaver, but unfortunately using it drains your melee charges, and the Necrotics boosted Arcane Needles are absolutely my highlight of the build. The speed and tracking on them are pretty generous, and it's not uncommon to just yeet a GL melee combo down a corridor and pick up kills on people who may or may not be on your screen. And yeah, I don't really know what else to say. This card was just completely free. We did lose our Mercy at 3 wins in a tough match with a teammate who was 60 light levels below Pinnacle, but even with that, with how much Broodweaver lets us damage people without actually fighting them, and with both of us just outputting so much damage all the time, we got through Broodweaver first try as well, and with seemingly even less effort than Shadebinder. I kinda hope I'm not introducing a new wave of Broodweavers into the trial sandbox with this one. There's already a similar build with Hunter Threadlings and Lemon Arc that's apparently very common on OCE servers, and I feel like we might be one bubble and well nerf away from seeing a lot more Threadlings in our trials matches. Anyway, before I show you the Stormcaller card, I gotta hit you with a little story time, which I do not have footage for, so enjoy this artist rendition of what happened. Also, the artist is me and I have a fever. A few seasons ago, when I was playtesting a Revenant build for a video, I matched against a Stormcaller main who you may have heard of. It was a close match, with us trading Dusk Fields and Lightning Surges all the way up until 4-4, when it came down to my Silence and Squall and Terror Stormtrance to decide the victor. Catching him separated from his team in the final round, I leapt into the air to deal the final blow, and watched him uncork a movement tech I did not know existed to instantly teleport 30 meters away, wipe my team, win the match for his carry, and win me as a fan forever. And even though I don't have quite as many Ace of Spade kills, I still decided to copy his signature build for the card. At a glance, it might just seem like a basic slide boots plus hand cannon shotgun setup, but the real magic is with how the transversive steps help with the lightning surge melee. Not only does the slide boost extend the range of your melee by a few meters, but it also gives you an extra half second to aim it, allowing for a whole range of options other than just ape and zap in a straight line. To clarify though, you can still do that. We're even sacrificing Arc Souls on this build in favor of Electrostatic Mind to just help with ability cooldowns. And all the Ionic traces we get, plus a decently high intellect stat, actually lets me use Storm Trance over Chaos Reach despite its longer cooldown. I even got to try the movement tech I mentioned earlier, which I learned is to slide off a raised platform, then Lightning Surge, then Super, which I whiff spectacularly, but just teleporting that far in the activation animation still lets me cut them off in time and easily clean them up. My biggest gripe with Storm Trance in most game types is that it's fairly easy to just run away from, but in Zone Trials, you can't do that, and I get more than one team wipe with it just by playing around the point. I'm also making use of the lightning grenades here, which are obviously great. This map is still perfect for the wall-mounted grenades with all the long flat walls and giant rectangular angles, but Owl is actually taking this build in a completely different direction on this one. He's going with what we call the battalion build, where you run Arc Soul Wrist and Getaway Artist for permanent Arc Buddy uptime, plus no time to explain for another turret on top of that. You usually run flashbang grenades with this for their short cooldown, but since I use those on Striker, he goes with the next shortest one, which is Skip Grenade. I don't think he ever actually threw it was just for the Arc Souls. This paired with our Healing Rift span lets us dominate the primary standoffs, and I can even grab Arc Souls of my own from his Rift since I'm not using them. And with all that, this card was still a battle. Lots of very close games against solid players, but with patient play and good super execution, we somehow got through Stormcaller first try as well. I think that's 3 first try subclasses in a row for us, but man, that last one was not nearly as easy. We took some mental damage late in the card as well to losing our Mercy on just straight zone RNG. We were starting to realize that the middle zone on Radiant Cliffs is basically free for the team who spawns Seaside, and some matches you just have to deal with the other team getting it every time and you getting it never. But after a tough card and a full day of grinding, I'm mostly just impressed that we're still friends and not bickering over anything stupid.
I thought you put us in a game. I heard the music.
No, so like after you get 7 and like you haven't lost enough.
Listen,
right?
dog,
Just,
after how salty I am about some of those rounds, I don't want to hear it.
Yo, you mean don't peek, don't peek, don't peek. I'm peeking the 3v1 and die. Blame me. That one? Is that what we're talking about?
They will back up this month.
Yeah, well, at least I got the better roll.
Did you?
No, it was awful. Thanks for asking that. Even though it's only around 9 p.m. on Saturday, after losing a couple games on Voidwalker, we decided to just take some rest. Hey, 5 subclasses in one day is great progress, and I think getting some rest for Sunday would do us well. I just gotta be careful not to let him talk me into another card at midnight. Yeah, peer pressure is hard for me. I actually was going to do a deep dive on Astrocyte Blink for Voidwalker, but little did I know that this season was going to grant us the greatest exotic perk of all time, Child Discipline. You're going to notice a lot of people just running away from me on this one, as the combination of Axion Bolts, Void Child, and an angry parent with a flaming submachine gun is just too much to deal with all at once, and trying to play aggressively against it just gets you thrown around by a pocket singularity melee. Seriously though, just look at this gameplay. I mean, I mentioned last video that Voidwalker was one of the best classes in the game for area denial, but Briarbond's letting you redeploy your Void Soul over and over just cranks it up to 11. It doesn't even matter if you get the kill or not. I'm just running around playing tower defense while Owl sits on the point with Boots of the Assembler and Lumina to keep me healed. Keep in mind, he also has Void Souls and Axiom Bolts of his own to cover point, and while I'm running Devour as my second aspect, Owl is able to run Chaos Accelerant instead to throw boosted Axiom Bolts over my shoulder as I'm playing my little mini game.
I got you an Axiom Bolt over.
That actually was enormous, thank you.
Oh, man.
The biggest weakness of Axions is that they can be broken in one bullet, but the real key is just to contest at the same time as the grenade to basically give yourself a pseudo 2v1. And with Void Souls on top of this, you probably understand why most people just choose to run away. You can't even break Void Souls until they fully deploy, so running away to break it in safety is usually the best answer. Because of all of this, Teraba easily fits in as the weapon choice for the build. Even with all the nerfs, with all the healing and distraction from my abilities, it's very easy to just flit around and constantly build Ravenous Beast, and a full charge of that is generally just round over. I'll skip over the Teraba clips though. If you follow my channel, you've seen enough.
Pushing you.
And the last thing I need to ramble about is Pocket Singularity. Some people were confused as to why I liked it so much last time, since it only does around half the damage of a normal melee. The key thing to remember is that with airborne effectiveness being a thing, being able to force your target in the air for a bit is usually just a death sentence for them, especially if you're able to pre-fire it, which is easy enough thanks to the tracking. It might not have the damage potential of a Celestial Fire or a throwing knife, but the positional advantage it gives you against both passive and aggressive players is very useful and even more difficult to counter. Oh, and if you are able to get them weak first, you can just yeet it around corners for cleanup and free free devour. And yeah, that's about it. The constant vampirism from Void Souls with a decent intellect stat easily lets me stay on pace with Wells and Bubbles for super, and somehow our Midnight card goes 7-0 again. Not counting the attempts from earlier, of course. Wow, Warlock was so much smoother than Titan. I would not have expected that going in. We took 7 losses total on Warlock compared to the 23 on Titan. Pretty crazy. Well, Saturday's coming to a close and we're already done with 2 full classes. I think that's exactly where I was in the pre-Lightfall challenge, but with 2 Strand subclasses done and Flawless Pool not being a thing anymore, I think it's safe to say we're ahead of schedule on this one. Sunday is a little busy for both of us, but with Monday being a work day, we both agree to wake up early and get in as much progress as we can on Hunter. But why rush, you know? I could tell you about how Arcstrider took us 4 hours in our entire morning session, but why? We're 2 classes down, and honestly, I'm tired. I don't want to make my cat get up. I mean, look at her. Would you make her get up so you could go play Arc Hunter in Trials at 8 a.m. on a Sunday? No. No, I think I'll just stay here and relax. Alright, fine. Look, take it from the guy who mained Arc Hunter since D1 Blade Dancer, it does not make me feel good to dog on this subclass, but man, Arc 3.0 really made this thing a PvE subclass and it just hurts my soul. See, this guy gets it. My Arc Hunter build got buffed as well. I pair the Frosties with Spark of Focus for free ability energy while sprinting, and Spark of Recharge for even more ability energy while wounded. And the new fragment, Spark of Haste, gives us an additional 30 mobility, resilience, and recovery, again just for sprinting. So not only am I running under 100 recov for maybe the first time ever, but I can actually get away with just 50 mobility as well, as the additional 20 from running lightweight weapons gets us to the maximum Gambler's Dodge cooldown of around 10 seconds while sprinting. Freeing up so many stats in the top half lets me allocate almost all of it into the bottom, getting me maximum discipline and near maximum intellect. The intellect specifically is very useful as it gives me so many more opportunities to throw Gathering Storm directly into a well and watch all of its occupants walk out completely unscathed. Not the real benefit is the max discipline arc bolt grenades, boosted by Jolt from Spark of Shock and available often thanks to everything I mentioned earlier. Paired with the Tempest Strike melee, we're able to put serious pressure on these narrow hallways when we're able to fight there, and since our Gambler's Dodge cooldown is so low, we don't even need to invest in strength at all to keep hugging these melees around. Oh, and since we're dodging so much, we're constantly reprocking Deadly Reach, which as far as I know is the only method hunters have right now of extending their melee range. Because we're running a lightweight shotgun, most of our shots are going to need a melee follow-up anyways, so by shooting a bit sooner and going for melees, we're able to make a lot of surprise plays on people who just don't expect a hunter to be lunging that far. Deadly Reach, baby!
Well played.
So, have I sold you on Arc Hunter? You should go try it out and let me know how it does against everyone having an overshield all the time. Friday and Saturday, it felt like we were mostly playing Dawnblades, which was already annoying, but for whatever reason, Sunday morning was just the Oops All Sentinels edition of the video, and what I was hoping would be a fun showcase of my favorite subclass quickly turns into an uphill battle against shields, overshields, this guy's bubble, this guy's second bubble, and sliding shield bashes that change direction so many times even the Titan gets lost. Okay.
Dude, what?
Yep.
What?
Yep, that seems average, yeah. Oh, and if you needed a reminder that this was filmed before the Antaeus Ward's nerf, well, there you go. And I wish this was the part of the rant where I could reveal to you some master strategy that got us through the card, but the truth is, after 3 to 4 hours, the matchmaking just kinda got better? Maybe we just needed a warm-up too, but it felt like as the morning went on, the matchups got a little bit more lenient, and all of a sudden we found ourselves going flawless with Mercy still intact. Yeah, it might seem weird, but this is actually kind of normal for Trials nowadays. Sometimes you just gotta keep spinning the matchmaking roulette wheel until it works out. This is honestly one of my biggest piece of advice to newer Trials players is just to keep trying. Just practicing Trials will improve your skills over time, and eventually it just comes down to spinning the wheel enough times to win 7 before you lose 2. Or actually, before you lose 3. That extra mercy is a good change, man. Anyways, born to pole dance, forced to shatter dive, am I right? The motto of this Revenant build is pretty simple. I go fast. You do not. The Stompies rework from a couple seasons ago famously changed them to only give their benefits while your dodge ability is fully charged, which was a heavy nerf to any Stompies Hunter build that encouraged dodging before your engagements. In other words, if you like using Deadly Reach on Arc, Invis Dodge on Void, Knock 'em Down on Solar, or Threaded Spectre or Suspend Dive on Strand, Stompies became a lot less potent with your setup. On Stasis, however, not only can we easily make do without a dodge-based aspect, but we can even get a replacement for the lost movement with Shatter Dive. The quick downward movement from Shatter Dive pairs extremely well with the quick upward movement provided by Stompies, and it enables this extremely vertical playstyle where you constantly jump around to take pot shots or throw dusk fields with Shatter Dive in your back pocket to quickly retreat to safety. From there, you want some good airborne weapons to complement your verticality. I'm running an Arcstrider with full AE investment through Air Assault and Icarus Grip and Extended Mag, but I do think I would prefer Kept Confidence if I had the pattern. Look, I've been busy, okay? Anyway, because Shatter Dive is on a set cooldown and we're trying not to use our dodge, we can get away again with lower mobility and invest more heavily into intellect and discipline. Silence and Squall is a mediocre super at best, but it is on a short cooldown and can control a zone decently well, so running a reasonably high intellect stat is generally worth it. But as you can probably expect, Max Discipline is yet again the hero of this build thanks to Touch of Winter Duskfield grenades. Despite their lower damage output, Duskfield remains one of the most useful grenades in the game thanks to its incredible slowing potential when paired with Whisper of Durance. Trap 2 people so the third is alone? Check. Zone off heavy every single round? Check. Your duo has renewals to make it even worse? Double check. Line up free duality headshots? Check. Stop enemy bubbles from reaching the point? Check. Stop anybody from reaching the point? Also check. Spamming them every fight? Check. Freezing reses? Check. Winning zone back? Check. And going flawless? Check. Yeah, that card went by a little too fast, to be honest. There's a ton of fun things you can do with this subclass, and it's hard to showcase them all in one card. Stuff like standing on your Duskfield Crystal to create new sniper lanes is really cool. You sacrifice the slowing utility with that, but they're on a fast enough cooldown to justify it in the right situations. I think my favorite Revenant gimmick, though, is to just go for final blows with Shatter Dive's 30 impact damage. You have to be a lot more aggressive than Radiant Cliffs really allows you to, but if you want to see some funny clips of that, I do recommend the Revenant Showcase that I mentioned earlier. The map was Wormhaven at the time, and that's probably the best map for Stasis Hunter in my opinion. Okay, I am running out of ways to segue here, and I can already hear the Aztecross outro music getting louder, so I'm just going to drag in this folder and see what happens.
You're so...
Okay, now what if I told you pre-nerf Ahamkara trip mines were not the highlight of this build? No, seriously, I mean it helps, don't get me wrong, 90% of this map is right next to a big wall, but the sleeper component of this build is a different ability I don't think I've ever actually used before.
3, 2, 1. He's gonna push forward, probably. Sniper, they've got a sniper now. I'm capping.
I've pretty much always stayed away from Radiant Dodge because of its extremely long cooldown and because the animation freezes you in place so you can't actually dodge anything. But having a duo to run it with you and alternating who actually uses it, we can run around with pre-nerf Forerunner damage every single round, which lets it 3-tap at any resilience and at much farther ranges. Throw in team shots on top of that, and yeah, the snipers and bows were not happy with us this card. Also, in case the trip mines weren't useful enough already, the massive Scorch they apply gives us a big surge of class ability energy thanks to the relevant Scorch fragments, and what better way to clean up a scorched 1 HP Guardian than with a Shayura's Wrath for free kill clip. I'm guessing I don't need to explain why kill clip and Radiant on this thing just makes it an absolute monster. As you might expect, this card was a first try 7-0, easiest card of the video by far, and frankly I'm done talking about it. Little fun tidbit for you though, I actually tried this build out solo a few weeks later, and while it was definitely still good, only having Radiant half as often was a noticeable hit to the consistency. I think it's the best example I have this video of using cross-player synergy to dominate our games, even though we are literally running the exact same thing. Don't worry though, that is the last of the cheesy builds today. Gonna keep it clean and honest from here on out. No one in the comments is gonna get mad about it. It's gonna be great. Yeah, I'm definitely not about to cut to some of the most vile gameplay you've ever seen in your life.
Top right barricade.
Yeah, don't worry, I'll keep this one short. Despite it not being at the top of the meta for a while now, I still hold the opinion that invis is one of the most broken mechanics in the game. Having a shorter radar is still better than what your enemies get, and slow walking around with a medium range burst damage option like a fusion or a grenade launcher will net you a lot of kills on people who just aren't expecting someone to be near them. And if you're gonna be a rat, well, you may as well go full rat. Paired with the Mechaneer's Trick Sleeves for AE and swap speed, a tag from a Disruption Break grenade launcher will let Rat King clean up with a single shot, and reloading afterwards will also reapply my invis so I can repeat the process on the next target. Most people know that Rat King gives you invis when you reload after a kill, but what most people don't know is that it also fully heals you if you have the catalyst. And you're gonna see this a lot in the footage. From the other team's perspective, it looks like I'm low health, overextended, and out of invis, but when they swoop in to clean me up, they suddenly find me full health, fully camoed, and fully loaded on another mag. As you can imagine, this turns a lot of single kills into double kills, and a lot of double kills into team wipes, and don't worry, it gets worse. Despite all the nerfs, Lemon remains one of the most obscenely oppressive weapons in the game, especially when paired with the Oath Keepers. Literally just having Owl sit behind me spamming arrows forces the other team to focus on him instead of me, and since he's also just keeping everyone low health, it makes my job extremely easy. He's also able to just watch my back since I'm running around close quarters with reduced radar, and yeah, we did not make many friends this card. There is one more part of Nightstalker I need to mention though, and it's one I actually didn't learn about until I started playtesting it. It has to do with the sheer amount of orbs of power you get. Since you're dodging every fight and sometimes even multiple times around, you really just proc Reaper over and over. Throw in a kinetic siphon on top of this and I had no problem getting my super in time to help deal with wells and bubbles, even with a middling intellect stat. I've seen some funny builds going around where people make use of Echo of Starvation to get Devour on orb pickup, but since I'm already getting full heals from Rat King, it didn't really seem worth the hit to my recovery stat. And in the current meta of zone trials, the important thing is really just getting super in a timely fashion. Tether's not the greatest super, but it can definitely get the job done in the right situations, and despite taking a tough reset late into our first attempt, we bounced back with a 7-0 right after. Alright, cool, it's over. If you want to go pause the video and take a shower, totally understand. It's around midnight for us, and even though our progress has been really good, we're actually both pretty bummed. The reset on Nightstalker set us back by around an hour and kind of crushed our hopes of finishing the challenge a day early. I know it's stupid, but having an entire day to do Threadrunner after a full night's sleep and everything, I don't know, the content just doesn't hit the same as an exhausted late night push to finish at the last minute. Which is why we're doing it now, baby! Learning my lesson from last time, we decided to save the best for last. Strand Hunter has been skyrocketing in popularity recently, not just because of how strong its abilities are, but also because of how many different viable playstyles it offers. You can invest in movement, threadlings, memes, or any combination of the three thanks to Threadrunner's very strong aspects. To me though, the biggest appeal of Strand Hunter is the Widow Silk aspect's secondary bonus that lets you set up these little endpoints with your grapples. With a second grenade charge and also a teammate who can alternate with you in setting up the endpoints, it opens up a whole range of ability activated perks like Well-Rounded. Even though this perk is generally kind of forgettable, Strand Hunter's unique ability to infinitely chain it makes it S tier on this subclass specifically, and instead of going with the other build options I mentioned, we instead try to answer the question of how many buffs can you chain forever just by pressing the grenade button. The answer? A lot. However, even with a single button press giving range, stability, handling, a full reload, a full grenade charge, airborne effectiveness, and woven mail, I am still struggling to win my 1v1s with this hand cannon. I don't know if it's because I've never used targeted redaction before, or I'm just spoiled from Igneous, or because I was just completely exhausted at this point, but it is taking every ounce of concentration I can muster just to try and keep this thing on target. As fun as it is just to sit in the back chaining grapples and trying to get picks with a 100 range hand cannon, we realized pretty quickly that the best use of woven mail is just to get up close and personal. Taking a leaf out of the Gunslinger playbook, we alternate setting up endpoints to conserve grenade charges, and combined with Threat of Generation, we are basically always ready to fly in with 25% damage resist and 2 suspend dives at the ready. Even my sleep-deprived self can shotgun suspended people, and conditional finality is already a guaranteed part of the build, considering we are never getting super. With all our stats invested in mobility, discipline, and of course recovery, the only Silk Strike we saw this card was from an enemy, who expertly wiped our team just after we had won the game. Finally, the threaded spike melee is just insane, mostly because it means I only have to land 2 shots instead of 3, and if the other team starts grouping up to stop us from diving in, then chucking in a melee is a free way to sever all of them and take a big chunk of health as we go. And despite losing our very first game on Threadrunner, it did not take us long to make our way up to 6 wins and launch into what could be our final match of the challenge.
Where's Aiden?
I'm not against it. Oh, we take those, baby.
The match is yours. Celebrate. I will join.
So what do you want to do tomorrow? Hey, we did it! Only took what, 9 months? Easy! And not a single roll with Impulse Amplifier and Proxnades. Cool! Great! I can go play more right after this! Okay, seriously though, if you made it this far, thank you. I really did mean it last time when I said I wouldn't be doing this again, but I also didn't really expect anyone to watch it or quadruple my subscriber count because of it. Videos like this are a bit of a monstrous undertaking for me when I'm kind of just a guy who works a 9 to 5, but the completely overwhelming response to the first one was all the motivation I needed to churn out a sequel, so really, thank you for that and also for your patience. Also, of course, a big thank you to Owl for grinding through this challenge with me. We've been friends friends for a very long time, and you have my full permission and encouragement to roast him in the comments for having motion blur on. As for what we did with our free Monday, well, we got ramen. Gotta pay tribute to everyone's favorite Hunter Vanguard coming back in the final shape, and thank him for not bringing a new set of subclasses with him. I don't know what Destiny will look like after the final shape, and I definitely don't know if I'll ever make something like this again, but if you want to subscribe anyway because big number make brain go happy juice, then be my guest. Also, if you're a degenerate Trials player like me, then maybe give this challenge a go. Do it solo, do it with friends, change the rules around, do it with maybe just your favorite class if all three is too much. Really just whatever sounds the most fun to you. I think it'd be really cool to see people trying this and putting their own spin on it. And hey, if you're a creator or just want to make a video out of it, I would absolutely love to watch it. I don't use Twitter or anything, so just at me in the description and I'll check it out. If you're not a PvP player but this video is making you reconsider, hey, maybe grab one of these builds and give it a go. I was no good at PvP when I first started either, but over enough time, practice, patience, you pick up a thing or two. If you have any questions for me, just ask them in the comments. I'll read every single one that doesn't say when strand, because that's probably my clanmates. Okay, enough rambling. Thank you for watching. Happy holidays. Goodbye.